terms of the venue for today's exercise, the State of the Nation address?
Right. First of all, let me say good morning to our cherished viewers. Yesterday, we had what is known as Committee of the Whole. That's Committee of the two caucuses, the majority and the minority, without the cameras, right? And the first Deputy Speaker, Honorable Joseph Osewusu, was in the chair. We were discussing our emoluments. And at the tail end of the majority leader's presentation or submission, he informed the House that the valedictory address of the President for the 7th Parliament would take place inside a tent. So something that all of us present heard, loud and clear. So that's where we are going.
Were there objections?
I'm not too sure about objections. All I heard was, I think, the MP for Banda, Honorable Ahmed Ibrahim, saying something to the effect that 200 of my colleagues will be seated in the plenary and the remaining 75 in the gallery. I heard something to that effect, and my view was that because of the social distancing protocols and what have you, they decided to shift the valedictory address of the 7th Parliament to the tent to accommodate all of us. And you know, there are other invitees as well, you know, who will be present.
But that's always been the case. So Evans, this morning when we came in here, very early in the morning, it was not so clear where the address was going to be held, whether it was the main chamber or now, as we know, as we've been hearing, the tent, because there's a special setup outside the forecourt of Parliament, and that's where this is going to happen.
I mean, I recall just last week I spoke to James Abonso. That decision to host today's event in the tent wasn't part of the plan. The tent was set up for the inauguration. And today when we came, the minority chief whip had no clue, and he said the members were not informed adequately, and a lot of them are upset that the thing had been moved without them being in the known properly. The clearly a communication issue about this. If the minority, and there were a lot of calls happening when we were with him, trying to figure out what was happening, why the sudden change in the last minute. This must have been something that had been communicated in the last few hours. In the last few hours, meaning could be overnight into this morning. It wasn't definitely there as of Monday, as of early Monday. Members of Parliament didn't know that this was going to be the case with the main event happening in the tent. I mean, it's a big deal, I guess. Why? Because within the climate in which we already are, little things can become big matters. And we've already had the minority say they are strategizing currently on how to deal with the change in venue. So it just comes back to the point. Every little thing has to be communicated, consensus built on it, and we are just seeing what this next parliament is going to look like, where a change in venue could cause a minority to go into caucus and decide how to retaliate because the venue has changed because of lack of communication.
Yeah, true. But you clearly disagree because you say that the communication was clear.
Yeah, but Evans, I mean, you are an expert in communications. And yesterday, I sat directly opposite the minority chief whip, Honorable Muntaka Mohammed. When the majority leader told the House, informed the House, that he has just been informed by the planning committee, well, these things are outside his remit as a majority leader. The Parliament has a planning committee in place that sees to the organization of such events. So what the majority leader told us, told the whole House, it was a committee of the whole. Haruna Iddrisu was there, the whole front bench of the NDC was there. Muntaka Mohammed was there, Honorable Aveji was there, Banda MP was there, Honorable Doyo, the lady. They were all there. I saw all of them. I sat directly opposite Muntaka in the chamber. You can go for the cameras. You can go for the footage. And for Muntaka to come and tell the whole nation that he was not informed, to me, it's an exercise in bad faith. Because he sat directly opposite the majority leader. And these matters, like I'm saying...
So was this a discussion, or we're telling you that this is the arrangement?
Yes, because, like I said, when it comes to organization of such events, it's clearly outside the remit of the caucuses. It's been done by the Parliamentary Planning Committee. So they informed majority leader in the course of his submission to inform the House that this event, this valedictory address by the President for the 7th Parliament will take place inside the tent.
So if this was clearly communicated as you're stating, why would the minority turn around and say something else?
You see, what I say, or what I can say to that effect is that committee of the whole proceedings are not recorded. So you don't have the footage. But I challenge Mustafa to bring a Quran and stand before Ghanaians and tell Ghanaians that you were not told yesterday. Yes, his Quran, his faith, and hold this in his hand. But I can hold the Bible and tell him clearly that we were informed in the House that the event will be taking place inside the tent. Yesterday, before 8 o'clock, because we left the meeting and went to another meeting. It was, I'm not too sure, but it was between 7:30, quarter to 8, when the House was informed the event would take place inside the tent. And for Muntaka to sit directly opposite the majority leader in the House and come and tell Ghanaians this morning that he was not informed, is to me, a clear demonstration of bad faith on the part of a leader who's supposed to be leading the minority caucus.
This 7 parliaments will be dissolved tomorrow. And
midnight, that's eve of...
exactly. Yeah. But I'm coming to the fact that because you have 137 and the NDC has also got 137, we're told the two sides will have to negotiate a lot. You have to talk. And I guess when ordinary persons such as ourselves worry about an issue like that, we worry because we're looking ahead to possibly what could be playing out in the 8 parliaments.
You see, clearly, some politicians in our country are very mischievous. And that's why we get situations like this. Yes, business in Parliament, clearly Evans, having been covering this for many years, will clearly tell you that about 95-98% of what we do is purely built on consensus. We hardly disagree, right? That's number one. Number two is, yes, it's 137 either way. But the independent candidate for Fomona, my good friend, Honorable Andrew Siama, has clearly indicated where he'll be voting. So clearly he'll be voting with us. And when it comes to Parliament, there's this thing being bandied about in Ghana, hung Parliament. There's nothing like hung Parliament that exists in the British jurisdiction.
Evans, we're here again today with this issue of hung Parliament.
When you come to a chamber, the rules of procedure clearly state that there's a majority and there's a minority. That's it in Parliament of Ghana. We don't have hung Parliament, 137, 138. We don't have that. When you enter the chamber and there's going to be a voting, at the end of voting, the speaker the clerk will announce the results, and based on the results, calculate that this is the view of the majority and this is the view of the minority. So when anybody says there's a hung Parliament out there, there's this, 137, there's that, well, we wait to see. But we all witness what will happen on the eve of Thursday, when the 8th Parliament will be sworn in. And the speaker will be elected first for him to swear us in. So we'll see. We'll clearly see the numbers and see who forms the majority and who forms the minority.
Well, Evans, this morning I had Andrea Japamesa try to even explain majority as stated in the standing orders.
Yes.
So it was, but I still didn't see clearly from what he read the definition of majority in this sense. So I still stick to the fact that Fomina MP will vote with you. He doesn't belong to your party. So yes. When it comes to the NPP in Parliament, we've got 137 members, correct, Evans?
That's right. I mean, those are the facts. The facts say you don't have a minority, you don't have majority. In the basic definition of what a minority is a party with the lowest number than the majority. As simple as that. Even if it's one, it makes a distinguishing feature there. Except that in this Parliament, both MPP and NDs hasn't got that. But I've been reading these standing orders overnight, right? And something struck me in the definition of a majority and a minority leader. In the definition of a majority leader, it defines the majority leader as the person designated by the party or parties as their leader. Can you then interpret parties to mean the independent candidate? Can you? And by the way, it's actually very interesting. The Speaker of Parliament has absolute powers on interpretation of the standing order.
Sure.
And he says he will interpret any part of the standing order as he deems fit. So I am seeing a situation where after he's sworn in, this matter probably will come up, and we'll have to interpret it as he deems fit. If he interprets parties to include
independent
candidate, then those two will elect one person to represent them as their majority leader in the House. So assuming that that interpretation is done, and this is all in the realm of assumptions, intellectual exercise, then the independent candidate together with the MPP will form the majority and then put forward their minority leader. Now, it's even more interesting when you look at the definition of the minority leader. The minority leader, and standing orders, is actually the party with the largest numerical strength in the House, other than the party that formed the government. That is actually the actual definition of minority leader in the standing order. I'm going to say it again because it's actually very important. The party with the largest numerical strength, other than the party that formed the government. In this case, which party is the party with the largest numerical strength other than the party that formed the government? Is the NDC. So in fact, it is accurate still in the 8th Parliament to describe the NDC, their leader, as a minority leader, according to the standing orders. Because the standing order didn't, in the definition of the minority leader, didn't use numbers only, but introduces the other party which is not in government. As a leader, the leader of that party is a minority leader, right? So it's actually accurate, according to the standing orders, to describe the leader of the NDC in the next parliament as a minority leader. And when you solve that problem about the definitional issue of the independent candidate, if you expand parties to mean independent candidate, again, the majority leader definition will also hold for the MPP. That is, if a definition issue arises and the speaker interprets it as he deems fit to include that, those issues will resolve. You know, one of the key concerns that I had coming into this interesting uncharted territory was nomenclature. Should we still describe the minority leader as the minority leader and the majority leader as such? Because I think there was nothing like that in the 8th Parliament. But having read the standing orders, I actually am of the view that it's actually accurate still to describe whoever is elected by the NDC still as a minority leader. And once that interpretational issue is addressed in the House, and I'm sure it may come up, you can still describe the majority leader if the independent candidate is, and it might even end up the Supreme Court, who knows? Because I have heard Muntaka on my show say that once he decides to be seen as NPP, he would vacate his seat because the constitutional provision will be triggered, right? But then it's a case of the powers that the speaker also has to interpret the standing order. But of course, that cannot supersede the constitution. Somebody needs to eventually go to court to get the Supreme Court to pronounce on that if it's become necessary. So we are at a very interesting time going forward, honestly.
Wow.
But the standing order, it appears to me, had anticipated this, and the definitional issues in there incorporate the kind of situation we have.
It's still not clear what party means in this sense, is it? Again, then it means that the speaker must interpret that as well. Because the question that you ask, whether or not the independent candidate can be said to be coming from a party so that he's a party by himself, is also another matter.
Oh, absolutely. And I said the standing order said the speaker can interpret any part of the standing order as he deems fit.
True.
So the question then becomes parties. Does it include an independent candidate? Can you say, but that's interesting too. I mean, we need to talk to the lawyers about this, right? Because in the Constitution specifically talks about the independent candidate who crosses carpet, vacating his seat, right? Can you say that in a Constitution anticipates a situation where an independent candidate will be deemed to be representing a party? That's also a whole new ball game there that you need to look at. But it's going to be an interesting
What happened to the conversation about the standing orders? We were told that you were looking into it again. You were almost passing a new one.
Anyway, I mean, I think in Joy FM, you have one of the best journalists in our country. I keep saying, if all journalists did their work like him, Ghana will be a peaceful nation. The noises and the what have you will be cut out of debates and discussions. He's come well prepared. He's read the standing orders. He's spot on about every provision of the standing order he's quoted. He's more than capable of becoming a member of parliament.
He is our member of parliament.
Okay. Now, that's the interpretation. The interpretation will be delivered by the speaker once he's elected. And nobody can compel the former MP to vacate his seat. He only votes with the MPP when it comes to voting matters. But he's there as an independent candidate.
So can you attempt to answer the question? Can we identify him as a political party?
Oh, yeah,
as belonging to a party, even though he's an independent candidate?
You see, if you look at how the whole provision is couched in the standing orders, the political party doesn't necessarily mean MPP, NDC, right? There's the quote-unquote, the what have you, the all political parties. He has come on the strength of being an independent candidate. And he had a symbol. He had all that to contest the election. So he's seen as a political entity. No two ways about that. But he has identified himself with the MPP. And the MPP will form the majority in the 8th parliament. It's as simple as that. Because tomorrow when it comes, on the eve of Thursday, when it comes to the voting of speaker, he has clearly stated that he's going to vote alongside the MPP. So clearly we know that all members present, MPP will have 138 votes against NDC 137.
Okay, well, we'll have to let you go because you have to get ready for the State of the Nation address.
I thought you said it had something to do with the 7th Parliament.
Excuse me?
I thought you said it had something to do with the 7th Parliament.
Oh, yes. I wanted to. No, just it's good that you reminded me. So, what has been significant in the 7th Parliament for you? Because that's the Parliament that you joined.
I think the 7th Parliament has been the most hard-working Parliament of all the parliaments since 1993. We're able to approve, I think, 143 bills. Yes, it's never happened in the history of Ghana's Parliament. And in terms of agreement, over 500. And this Parliament, I believe, is so. What I can say is most of my colleagues are leaving this house, and I think politics is so unfair. Because I could see, typical cases, Honorable Dr. Okoboy Bernard, such a rising star. His political ambition cut off, midstream. You have the Esibe Boas, the Oparian says, and they've been there, they've acquired, experience and what have you. And this is the time really that the party needed them to be either the front or in other areas of politics. But unfortunately, they're all out, and we will have to start all over again. I mean, that's an unfortunate bit. But in terms of hard work, in terms of performance, in terms of I would say meticulousness, this Parliament, or the 7th Parliament, is so far the best.
It's interesting you choose the word meticulousness, because that's also one of the criticisms, that even though you've passed so many bills,
don't bring it.
You haven't done such a good job with oversight as well, because that's also one of your responsibilities as a Parliament, oversight over the executive.
Well, I think it's a debate for another day. We can have. But we have to look at the whole Constitution. Take a holistic view of the Constitution. There are so many. We had a professor of law who became president of this country. I heard Professor Mills say numerous times that there's so many lacunas in the Constitution to be filled. Nothing was done about it. You found Akufo, who is a lawyer. We had Akufo-Addo, who is a lawyer. And it's not for us, lay people like us, to do justice to the Constitution. I'm sure some provisions of the Constitution need tweaking. We need to tweak it to meet the modern demands of politics.
Okay.
And also, There are other areas, but I don't think it's a subject for this morning.
Well, we wish you well
Thank you.
In the 8th Parliament, because you'll be in the 8th Parliament, so we'll have plenty of conversations in the future.
Sure.
All right, that's Member of Parliament for Subin, who's just joined us with his thoughts, getting ready to be part of the State of the Nation address to be delivered later today. We're live on Joy News, also live on Joy Prime as our coverage of the State of the Nation address. And this is also in partnership. Our coverage of the State of the Nation address is brought to you by DBS Colorlink Plus Roofing Sheets. After several years of intensive research, DBS Industries Limited brings you roofing sheets to help complete your dream house in style. Experience the amazing touch of Colorlink Plus Roofing Sheets in 26 years, which means Colorlink Plus Roofing Sheets always stay clean and beautiful for you. And there's more. We're giving you a whopping 20 years warranty against fading and peeling. Visit DBS Industries Limited in Accra on the Spintex Road near Papaya Restaurant, or you can call their hotlines on 0543 286 637. Number is 0543 286 637, or you can visit their factories in Kumasi, Tamale, and Takrady. DBS Industries Limited, we truly are your roof experts. We're happy to be bringing you this coverage, which is brought to you by DBS Colorlink Plus Roofing Sheets. Live on Joy News, live on Joy Prime. Two of my colleagues are here as we bring the back conversations, what you probably would not see when the address is underway. Evan Spencer, I said, of our political desk. My colleague, Kojo Angsing, also joins us. Good morning, Kojo. Yeah. After a super morning show, here we are in Parliament with another State of the Nation address. But this is unique, isn't it?
This is the Parliament that is heralding perhaps the most interesting.
Okay. Kojo, you've got to give me apologies there, but we have to work on your microphone, apparently. But we're talking about the uniqueness of this address, Evans. And I don't know where we are in terms of what the minority says. We still, what NDC says, what MPP says, even with one meeting and communication about a venue for the State of the Nation address.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying yesterday to the majority whip, well, the new whip that the MPP had, Anno Dompe, who has been nominated, that it looks to me that in the next Parliament, every little issue will probably have to come down to a vote. It will be that contested, and we're just seeing that start playing out right now with the change of venue. I mean, the simple change of venue, and has become an issue. But it must be said. I mean, I heard the MP we just spoke to make the point about this was communicated last night for an event that was happening a few hours later. I mean, to just announce a change just overnight, it appears a lot more could have been done in the sense of getting Parliament to discuss. I mean, what tends to happen, I know, is that the leaders meet first, talk about the details. So by the time they come to the floor, the leadership would have agreed and would have been informed. And I believe sort of announcing it when the committee, everybody was meeting, was a way to do it. But I know yesterday there was a significant break in the House for the Parliament to sort of reconvene. And that period should have been used to communicate these changes. By the time they got into the House, the leadership will be in the know, and then they communicate to the rest of their members. That is, I honestly think in the next Parliament, and we are seeing the signs here, you cannot take any decision for granted. You cannot. You cannot just say, oh, it came up spontaneously and we're just told, and so let me announce it, and the committee just informed us. It will become an issue, as we've seen. And I guess somebody should be learning the lessons of these last few hours of the 7th Parliament and what is playing out today. Should sort of set a tone for what is going to happen in the 8th Parliament. And we see the minority say they're going to be doing a procession into the tent to protest the change in the venue. We'll see.
Oh, is that confirmed? Okay, so...
well, we'll see.
Yeah, Kojo, you were talking about the uniqueness of this.
Yeah, I was saying that we're about to see, the 8th Parliament of the 4th Republic is going to be the most interesting parliament in the history of Ghana so far.
And there are obvious reasons why. But there's something perhaps we haven't yet thought of in its fullness. Let's assume that these court cases do not result in any change. So we have 137 NDC MPs, 137 NPP MPs, and one independent candidate. Now let's imagine a situation where Michael Quay, Reverend Professor Michael Quay, is retained as Speaker of Parliament. Or some other person who is not an MP is made Speaker of Parliament. And the first deputy is an NDC MP.
The first Deputy Speaker of Parliament.
Let's assume a situation like this. Now, I prefer the Michael Quay example. It works better for me. Reverend Professor Michael Quay, let's assume that in this, his second term as Speaker, suddenly finds himself quite busy with matters outside Parliament, for which reason the First Deputy has to sit in for him quite often. Every time the First Deputy is in the chair, he cannot vote. So the NPP will have an automatic majority.
Well, not necessarily, because remember also that there will be ministers of states coming from parliaments, and they may not necessarily all be present.
But if it's a big issue where there has been a 3-line whip and everybody is there, and it is critical, the NPP will have the edge, no matter what, because the person sitting in the chair as Speaker cannot vote. Okay, so there is going to be a lot of chess being played in Parliament. Okay, there will be times when both parties will have to really dig deep and come out with all kinds of strategies. It might require some serious lobbying. It might require some serious interpretation of the standing orders, just to ensure that one party gets their way over the other. But one thing is clear: nobody is going to have an easy ride through Parliament with anything ever again. Not in this eighth this 8th session of the Parliament. It's going to bring up a lot of fascinating conversations about how Parliament ought to have been working in the past. We've talked about how they will have to work together. Well, yeah, but sometimes it's healthy for the two sides of Parliament to be as vigorous as possible in their opposition of each other, so that the state or the nation gets to see the merits of both sides of an argument. But how do you then resolve it at the end? When you've turned it into this big conflict? So look, the number of things that can happen under any circumstance in the next Parliament, they are uncountable. But one thing is for sure: we are certainly going to have a lot of work to do.
As you're given the various scenarios, I'm also just thinking, it will be exciting, yes, but would it be effective? Would it make us move forward, or will we be stuck with issues where this part says this, and that kind of thing?
I think one thing that the people of Ghana do very well is apportion blame. When something is not going well, the people of Ghana are very good at pointing out who caused it. Now, parliamentarians are going to have to be very careful of this, because whenever an issue comes up, you live in an area where a road is, supposed to be constructed. Then the two sides of Parliament cannot agree on the budget for this road. You are a citizen in that area, you need this road. There will come a time when you will put aside your partisan considerations and say, who is stopping me from getting this road? And apportioning blame is something we do well. So politicians who form Parliament certainly do not want to be the ones who are on the other end of a pointy finger. So it will be in their interest sometimes to actually align with the side that keeps them popular. We are probably going to see parliamentarians represent their constituents perhaps a lot more than they have in the past. Parties might start to lose grip over parliamentarians. And that will also bring with it a very interesting dynamic.
Yesterday, we got to see the lists of the leadership on the NPP side in the 8 parliaments. We're getting some names on the NDC side. Muntaka Mubarak assures me that by close of day today, we would see their lists. But I asked him specifically if they're going to nominate a candidate for the speaker position. he's not ruling that out. We've heard Alban Bagbin. Let me go through the lists of names coming out that will form at least their leadership side. And this is just what is out there. This is being speculated. So they will probably nominate a candidate for the speaker position. And the name coming out is Alban Bagbin, the first deputy speaker, James Kluchia Vergi, majority leader, Haruna Idrisu, and majority because I'm sure you get the sense of where we are coming from, where both sides, everybody says a majority. Deputy majority leader, Doyo Gansa, majority chief whip, Muntaka Mubarak, first deputy majority chief whip, Ibrahim Ahmed, and then the second deputy majority chief whip, Quinsta Equia Sawyer. What do you make of these names?
First of all, to the issue of the NDC calling themselves majority, I heard Evans's analysis and I agree with him. I think the language is a little bit too clear, and they have made that condition of the minority being whichever party has the largest numbers, apart from the party that formed the government. The party that formed the government is the NPP. So look, even if the NDC wins some cases in court and become the numerical majority in parliament, according to that standing order, they are forced to call themselves the minority, because they are not the party that formed government. That is, unless the election petition succeeds and John Mahama, becomes president. So unless that happens, I don't know how they will be able to call themselves the majority. But that aside, those names, every single name there has some amount of experience in the wranglings of Parliament. It would be difficult to suggest that any one of those people would struggle in the positions that in the position of speaker. But if they pick someone who is a sitting MP, then they've created the same problem. They've lost a vote. So I wonder whether it would be in their interest to go with any of these names of someone who has gone through this election and won a seat. Would it be smart for the NDC to put such a person in the seat as speaker and lose a vote?
Evans?
Yeah, I mean, I it's a good point. I doubt if it's strategically prudent to nominate somebody who is a sitting member of parliament from the minority side, from the NDC side. Because if they do that, if I am the NPP, I would, for the speaker position, I honestly don't see how they win that contest, because it will come down to a secret vote. And what we know is the MPP is going to get the independent candidate on their side in the voting, except something dramatic happens. That's what we expect to happen, and we expect that they'll win by a vote, and so it really won't come to anything. And we've heard the MPP say that if the NDC insists on putting forward a candidate, then they're going to sort of then take the rest of the slots. Which is that they would get an MPP, a second, say the first vice could be MPP, and then the second could be the independent candidate. Could be, because the Constitution makes it clear, or the standing orders, which is the standing orders that specifies that the first and second should be from two other political parties.
Yeah, two different.
Yeah, but that's it comes. The definition of the party also shows its face here. Again, would we say that the Fomena MP belongs to a party?
Well, we have a precedent. Freddie Blay.
Do you get what I'm driving at?
Party,
yeah,
right?
but he was with
a
a party, the CPP.
Yeah.
So it comes back to
independent.
the deputies.
How about when? No, he wasn't independent either. He was in the party.
So,
yeah.
It comes back to.
Mr. Speaker, before I proceed, I beg the indulgence of the House to join me in standing up and observing a minute of silence in memory of the dynamic first president of the Fourth Republic, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, who sadly passed away on 12th November 2020. May his soul rest in perfect peace in the bosom of the Lord until the last day of the resurrection, when we shall all meet again. Amen. In the bosom of the Lord until the last day of the resurrection, when we shall all meet again. Amen. Mr. Speaker, as demanded by the Constitution, I have come before this august House to deliver on the dissolution of this 7th Parliament a message on the state of the nation, which is essentially an account of my stewardship as President of the Republic these past 4 years. On 7th December 2016, the good people of Ghana went to the polls and honored me and my party, the New Patriotic Party, by voting us into office. We were given a clear and unequivocal mandate with decisive victories in the presidential and parliamentary elections. And by the grace of the Almighty, the Vice President, Alhaji Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, and I were sworn into office on January the 7th, 2017. We had presented to the people of Ghana during the campaign a clear plan of how we intended to grow and transform the economy. Speaker, we thought we knew that we would face a difficult situation, but when we took a good look, we were still taken back by the state of the economy we inherited. An economy with severe macroeconomic instability, weak growth, a troubling financial sector, low investor confidence, and significant structural bottlenecks. The basic facts of our unhappy inheritance are well documented. 15.4% rate of inflation, a 9.3% fiscal deficit, 32% rate of interest, a 3.4% rate of GDP growth, the lowest in 2 decades, all under an IMF-sponsored bailout program. We set to work quickly, and I'm glad to say that we've been able to stabilize the economy, exit satisfactorily the IMF program, and restore confidence in the economy. At the end of 2019, the economy was characterized by strong growth in response to implementation of government flagship programs, single-digit inflation, reduced fiscal deficits with 3 consecutive years of primary surpluses, relatively stable exchange rate, significant improvement in the current account with 3 consecutive years of trade surpluses, strong foreign exchange reserve buffers, and markedly reduced lending rates. The global pandemic of COVID-19 threatened to derail the progress chalked over the first 3 years of my administration. Its impact has led to the revision in GDP growth for 2020 from 6.8% to 0.9% and later to 1.9% to reflect significant slowdown in economic activities as a consequence of the effects of COVID-19 on lives and livelihoods. The proactive decisions taken by government to fight the pandemic, as well as revitalize and transform the economy with the 100 billion CD Ghana Cares or Batampa program, anchors bright prospects for the medium term. Government will continue to implement prudent fiscal measures to quicken the pace of fiscal consolidation. And in March this year, the Minister for Finance will come to this august house to provide further details on the measures to be taken to restore our country back to the path of economic recovery. Mr. Speaker, government in 4 years has recorded a number of significant milestones in our quest to formalize and modernize the Ghanaian economy. We believe it is the fairest and fastest way to achieve our goals. The National Identity Card rollout, the National Digital Property Addressing System, the interoperability of mobile money transactions, the introduction of the paperless operations at the port, e-business registration system, and access to digital financial services are all part of the drive to formalize our economy and enhance its productivity. For years, there had been unhappiness and sometimes agitation on the subject of the geographic delineation of regions in the country. In the particular case of what was to become the OT region, their demand for a new region stretched back to more than 60 years. We decided that we needed to resolve these matters to be able to bring governance nearer to the people. The constitutional processes for the creation of new regions was put in place, and after the petitions and stakeholder consultations, the people in the identified areas have the opportunity to vote in historic referenda. There were overwhelming approvals for the yes vote in the referenda held in 47 districts across 4 existing regions. This led to the creation of 6 new regions, and we now have 16 instead of the 10 regions that existed at the start of my administration. 4 years ago, it sounded recklessly optimistic, but free SHS and free TVET are now entrenched parts of our educational setup. In a few years' time, we can guarantee that the basic education for the workforce in our country will be at the secondary level. It is a transformational step that we have taken, which should quicken the pace of development all round and give us confidence in our future. In 2017, it appeared to some like the same old refrain when we said farmers and agriculture would get the highest priority. But we can see the difference it makes when a government treats farmers with respect and spends resources and expertise on agriculture. We have seen the dramatic turnaround of our agricultural fortunes due to the progressive policies that have improved the living standards of farmers in the country. The excellently executed policy for planting for food and jobs has laid the foundation for the agricultural transformation of our country. We are able to say that our country is now a net exporter of food, and we no longer have to import basic foods like plantain and tomatoes. Mr. Speaker, Ghana rice is the preferred choice in an increasing number of our homes as the growing, processing, and packaging of rice become a more established and attractive industry. During this COVID crisis, we have mercifully been spared the specter of food shortages. On the contrary, thanks to planting for food and jobs, food has been in abundance in our markets across the country. Throughout the ages, food processing has provided the takeoff point for the industrialization of many nations. And we are taking that lesson to heart as we pursue the goal to industrialize, modernize, and create jobs for the young people of our nation. The One District, One Factory program is part of the anchor on which we're building the comprehensive industrialization of our country. Much of the work has now been done to put in place the framework for the rapid implementation of projects. The factors that are currently in place and in production reflect the underlying principle of the program, which is the equitable distribution of development projects around the country. The prospects of our becoming the automobile hub in West Africa are growing stronger every day, with the investments being made in the country by global manufacturing giants in the automobile industry. Mr. Speaker, probably the most difficult problem the government met on coming into office was the state of the banking and financial sector. Many of our banks were in distress and had been kept on unsustainable and artificial life support by the central bank. The supervisory agencies were unfortunately not performing their duties, and the governance and management structures of many of the banks were clearly not adequate. If truth be told, many of our finance houses were running what can only be called glorified Ponzi schemes and had lured many depositors into these schemes. We were in a desperate situation, and urgent radical measures had to be taken to prevent the collapse of the entire financial and banking sector. The Bank of Ghana, under new leadership, intervened and has restored sanity to the sector, and in the process, we have saved the banks involved and 4.6 million depositors' funds. The government has had to find some 21 billion cedis to fund the cleaning up exercise. This exercise has enabled a more robust financial and banking services sector to emerge, the better to finance the rapid development of our nation. Speaker, there are painful lessons that we all have to imbibe from this debacle. There is no question but that many people got attracted to the unsustainable high interest rates that some of these financial houses were offering. In all financial dealings, we have to accept what the experts tell us, that whenever whatever on offer sounds too good to be true, it invariably ends up being untrue and unsustainable. Government is committed to paying all validated claims, and I expect the process to be completed soon after the courts grant the liquidation orders for the remaining failed fund management companies. Mr. Speaker, since my assumption of office, has increased annually the budgetary allocations to all the accountability institutions of state, including Parliament and the judiciary, with the latter, for example, being the beneficiary of 90 newly constructed courts across the country. Our security agencies have been equipped with more personnel and the requisite tools needed to maintain law and order, as well as protect the territorial integrity of our borders. At the 81st Cabinet meeting, the decision was taken to exclude the security services, that is the police service immigration service, fire service, prison service, as well as other security and intelligence agencies, just like the armed forces, from the unification of pension schemes. In other words, all the security agencies will continue to enjoy benefits under the Cap 30 pension scheme. And the appropriate legal regime will be put in place by the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations to ensure this. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to report that our undertaking to bring peace to Dagbon has been successful. For decades, this ancient and proud kingdom had been bedeviled with conflict. Since 2002, when a fresh eruption of the conflict ended in the tragic killing of my friend, the Yana Yakubu Andani, Dagbon had become designated as a troubled land. A generation of young people have grown up knowing nothing else but Dagbon as a troubled land where there was no peace, and public officials hesitated to accept postings there. On assumption of office, we decided to tackle the problem with renewed vigor. Luckily for all of us, the three eminent chiefs who had been at the helm of the peace process since 2002 did not relent on their commitment or enthusiasm for the cause of peace. Our efforts bore fruit. A historic settlement was reached, and peace has been restored to Dagbon. I recall the joy and deep satisfaction that I felt on the day that I attended in Yindi the enskinment of the new dignified Yana, Muhammad Bukari II, and I carry my honorary title of Dagbon Malti Na Abudani, which he graciously bestowed on me with pride. I admit freely that it was one of the highlights of the past 4 years for me as President of the Republic. I was happy, not just because a long-running problem had been finally resolved, but also because I know that the development and modernization of our country that we all desire can only happen when there's peace and unity in Ghana. I express the deepest gratitude of the nation to the many people who worked so hard to give Dagbon the opportunity for its people to lead normal lives again. I pay homage especially to the three eminent chiefs who led the process: the redoubtable Asantehene Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II, the overlord of Mamprugo, the Nairi Na Bohugu Abdullah Mahami Sheriga, and the overlord of the Gonja state, the Yagbonwura Tutumba Boresa Sulemana Japa. And I congratulate the Dagbon people themselves for deciding to embrace peace. We pray that we learn all the hard lessons and reject the use of violence to resolve the problems that will come up in our lives. Mr. Speaker, since I'm on the subject of highlights, this might be the appropriate place to recall the year of return. 2019 marked the 400th anniversary of the start of the barbaric transatlantic slave trade, and we declare the year of return as a mark of solidarity with the descendants of the millions of Africans that were taken in captivity from our shores into the Americas and Caribbean. Black people in the African diaspora, those in the Americas and Caribbean, and indeed in the rest of the world, took to their hearts our invitation and came in their numbers to Ghana. Our country throbbed to the sound of the returnees and the joy of finding a welcome after the trauma of 400 years of the horror of the slave trade. The young people of the world came to Ghana, and it was a good experience for all of us to play host to the world. We entered the year 2020 full of hope and the determination to build on the successes and joy of 2019, which ended on such a high note. Then the unexpected struck, and our world was literally changed overnight with the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic has shaken economies and public health systems the world over and brought even some of the wealthiest and most developed countries to their knees. Over here in Ghana, our first priority in fighting the pandemic has been and will continue to be the health and safety of our citizens. We pioneered life-saving innovations that the WHO has since sought to replicate elsewhere. Our success thus far is a testament to the tireless work of our researchers, scientists, advisors, public health managers, frontline health care workers, hospital staff, contact tracers, and so many others who have dedicated themselves to the fight to keep Ghanaians safe. Our nation is deeply indebted to them. Prior to the onset of the pandemic on our shores, government had succeeded in restoring the highly indebted National Health Insurance Scheme, inherited in January 2017, back to rude health. Some 95,000 health workers were recruited into the public health sector, and we ensured that each constituency now has a well-equipped, functioning ambulance. COVID-19 has presented us with the opportunity to resolve some long-standing problems in the health sector. We have taken steps to resolve the problem of infrastructure deficit in the healthcare system once and for all, with the exemption of Agenda 111 and the start of the building of hospitals around the country. We are upgrading district hospitals where they exist and establishing new ones where they do not. We're also investing in our next generation of Ghanaian doctors and nurses. Throughout the period, I have tried to keep the Ghanaian people informed with regular broadcasts so we all know what is going on. This has led to the phrase fellow Ghanaians attaining a new status, as Ghanaians brought their famed ingenuity to find relief in the doom of the devastation being wreaked by the pandemic. Our artists and designers have brought their expertise to bring unexpected relief. We're wearing the fellow Ghanaians and this too shall pass fabric with pride and the knowledge that we're able to find something positive out of the darkest events. I've had a team of dedicated Ghanaian professionals formed into a task force who have been advising me throughout the crisis, and I'm extremely appreciative of them and all those who have risen to the occasion and helped us to cope with the crisis. I'm using this opportunity to again remind all of us that the pandemic is still with us and we have to maintain the protocols to keep us safe. Speaker, these past 4 years it has been a joy and a great privilege to serve our nation as president. There were many moments of great satisfaction, some moments of frustration, and some moments of disappointment. That is not saying anything special. That is life, and I did not expect that everything the government tries to do would have universal acceptance. There is one subject, though, which I believe we, the people, need to have an open conversation, and that is the phenomenon of galamsey. Should we allow or not allow galamsey? The illegal mining that leads to the pollution of our water bodies and the devastation of our landscape. As I have said often, the Almighty having blessed us with considerable deposits of precious minerals, there would always be mining in Ghana. Indeed, there has always been mining in Ghana. The problem we have is the use of modern technology that leads to the illegal mining methods, posing serious dangers to our water bodies and the health of our environment. The pollution of our rivers and water resources has been so acute on occasion that the Ghana Water Company is unable to afford the distilling of water to make for safe drinking. We have to talk about galamsey. We who are leaders owe it to the country to take the subject out of the party political arena and have an honest conversation about this menace to our future. Mr. Speaker, by dint of hard work, we have ensured that presently our country's reputation amongst the Committee of Nations is high. For the first time in our history, Ghana has been honored by her peers with the privilege of playing host to a Pan-African institution, the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. One of the most momentous developments in the modern history of our continent. I've also been honored to follow in the footsteps of my predecessor presidents, specifically their excellencies Jerry John Rawlings, John Agyekum Kufuor, and John Dramani Mahama, with my appointment as chairperson of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. I'm aware of the enormity of the task ahead, and I assure the community that I'll discharge my duties to the best of my abilities. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say a special thank you to the members of this august House, to the members of this 7th Parliament in our 4th Republic. I speak as someone who has served 3 terms in this House, and I can safely say that this 7th Parliament has been the busiest ever and arguably the most productive in the history of our country. You have passed almost 50 pieces of legislative instruments. The acts have been wide-ranging in scope and reach. We finally have the Right to Information Act. We have an Office of Special Prosecutor Act. The Ghana Integrated Aluminum Development Corporation Act. The Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Development Act. The Witness Protection Act. The Lands Act. The Historic Private Members Bill, and lots more. In many ways, you have helped transform Ghana, and you have every right collectively to be proud of the work you have done. Mr. Speaker, the next Parliament is not going to be anything like this one that ends today. I do not suggest that the House might not be as busy, but the sitting arrangements, the source and decibel levels of sound from the House would certainly be different. The good people of Ghana have spoken and given Parliament an almost equal strength on both sides of the House. We have no choice but to work with the consequences of the desires of the people. The House would have to be more accommodating of each other's views and probably devise new ways of conducting its affairs in the interest of the good governance of our people. I am thankful to the Ghanaian people and to the Almighty that I have been given a clear mandate to govern the country for 4 more years, and thereby given the opportunity to complete tasks, consolidate some of the far-reaching measures we have introduced, and initiate further changes and adjustments to policies and practices. The Constitution demands that we go to the people after 4 years to ask for a mandate, and we must listen to the voice of the people. I said during the election campaign, and it is my firm and passionate view, that I should only be president in a fairly conducted election, which I believe in all sincerity the election of 7th December was. recognize that my main opponent in the election, the former President John Dramani Mahama, has gone to the Supreme Court to seek its intervention and grant reliefs that he believes were compromised in the conduct of the elections. It is good for the nation that in the end he chose the legal path instead of the pockets of violence that have attended the rejection of the results by his party in the period after the elections. We all have to make a deliberate decision to invest in the rule of law and uphold the integrity of the institutions of our state, so that no person or group of persons take the law into their own hands with impunity. Mr. Speaker, it has been my great pleasure and exceptional privilege these 4 years to have served as President of our beloved country. I'm grateful to you, this Honorable House, for its cooperation in the enterprise to attain our common goal and aspiration of advancing the peace, progress, and welfare of the Ghanaian people. I will see some of you in February. And those of you who will not be present, have my best wishes for the future. May God bless the Parliament of the Fourth Republic and us all. And may God bless our homeland Ghana and make it great and strong. I thank you for your attention.
I seize this opportunity to express our appreciation to the Ghana Armed Forces, the various security agencies, and our own internal security for their services, which have ensured the smooth success of this function. Honorable members, again, in accordance with our practice, a formal communication will be sent to His Excellency the President after the House has debated this message. The full debate on the message will commence at a time to be determined by the Business Committee. Honorable Majority Leader, if you may ask for any indication at this time.
Speaker, honorable members, we've listened to the President of the Republic, and I guess as usual, before I give any indication, maybe the Speaker may want to hear from the Minority Leader. Even if before I give an indication as to what to do next. We are together in this enterprise together. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I see motion item 4, and it's my expectation that the majority leader would have moved that motion, but it is not out of place that I do it. That this honorable house thanks His Excellency the President for the message on the state of the nation. We will do so, Mr. Speaker, as you rightly pointed out, but to remind the President that Parliament is not almost in the 8th Parliament. The numbers we are certain, if the Chima is added, we would have a majority. And Mr. Speaker, we leave our fractured democracy in your hands. Conspicuously lost in your speech is the loss of lives in Techima and other parts of Ghana. We have an economy which is hugely debt-driven. We have a bag of corn selling for 200 Ghana in Tamale, yet the economy in Ghana is doing well. We will thank you. We will thank you for serving Ghana well. I will not open the debate today. I will not open the debate today, but Mr. President, to remind you that peace must be predicated on fairness and justice. I thank you.
Honorable Minority Leader, did I respectfully hear you seconding a motion for adjournment? Honorable Majority Leader, if I may please have a clear indication as to a motion for adjournment. Order, honorable members.
Speaker, as has been advertised on the order paper, what you are required to do is to move a motion, and the motion is to be moved by the majority leader, to be seconded by the minority leader. Mr. Speaker, what I raise by way of preliminary observation is that if there are any indications, the minority leader will be called on first before any indications could also be given by the majority leader, as is the practice in the House. But Mr. Speaker, the President has provided under Article 67 of the Constitution has come to deliver to Parliament a message on the state of the nation. The state of the nation as he met it, and the measures he, as President of the Republic, has instituted to improve the lot of Ghanaians and indeed develop the country as a whole. Mr. Speaker, the state of the nation that he is bequeathing to himself, he has accounted for to the nation in his brief address. Mr. Speaker, the President has appealed to his own government to be much more consultative given where we are as a nation. And he has also appealed to Parliament to be innovative in the conduct of business, all in a bid to deepen our democratic governance. So, Speaker, normally when the President delivers his message on the state of the nation, the Parliament sets aside a date and indeed periods to pore through the content of the debate. Now, given where we are, the last state of the nation address given by the President at the dusk of his own life and at the dusk of Parliament's life, there's virtually no space to debate the content of that message. Perhaps to be innovative, we should devise a scheme to interrogate the content. But for now, no such message has been debated in the House. Mr. Speaker, for those of them who decide to be very speculative and live in the dream world, reality check would show where we are as a nation.
51-47.
Mr. Speaker, people should be woken up from their dreamland. But we are not there yet. In the scheme of parliament arrangement, there's no hung parliament. There's no hung parliament in Ghana. There is always a majority caucus. By our own rules, there are only two caucuses in the House: majority, minority. Wherever the pendulum swings, Mr. Speaker, that group will constitute the majority. People should learn the rules of procedure in this House. Mr. Speaker, accordingly, I want to move that this Honorable House thanks the President for the message on the state of the nation which he has delivered to the House this day, Tuesday, the 5th of January 2021. I so move. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minority Leader, please.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion and to remind the House that the Ghanaian people voted for no to excessive partisanship, no to the divisive politics of our country, and for shared opportunities for the good of the Ghanaian people. I beg to second the motion.
Honorable members, the motion to congratulate His Excellency the President for his brilliant address to us here this morning has been moved by the Majority Leader and seconded by the Minority Leader. All those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Honorable Majority Leader, any further indication at this time?
Speaker, having listened to the President of the Republic, and as usual, and as dictated by convention and practices of this House, Speaker, you may adjourn proceedings for the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Majority Leader. Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we are in your good hands. Thank you.
The motion for adjournment has been moved and duly seconded. All those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. This Honorable House is accordingly adjourned till Friday, till tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Honorable members, I shall now process out with the President, the Vice President, and the leadership of the House to the lobby for Mr. President and the Vice President to sign the Distinguished Visitors Book, after which we will return through the chamber to the Speaker's lobby for a brief interaction. Meanwhile, honorable members and our invited guests are entreated to kindly remain by your seats during the process. His Lordship, the Chief Justice, will also process out of the chamber in the company of the Justices of the Superior Court of Judicature before joining us to sign the Distinguished Visitors Book. The House stands adjourned to tomorrow accordingly. Thank you very much, honorable members. Thank you, Mr. President.